name's Philip O'Donnell, and my rank is Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Navy Reserve. And long story short, I ended up putting in 5 years, which was the contract at the time. I got out of the Navy because I decided, why did I get out of the Navy? I got out of the Navy because I absolutely loved it, and it was a close call. But I didn't want to spend the next 25 years of my life doing an endless series of 6 to 8 month cruises. I grew up without a father who died early and no family life, and to me, the wonderful way to live was to meet a wonderful woman, marry, have children, and live in a lovely home. That to me was something I never had, and that was subconsciously what I wanted. So I decided to get out. I returned to Georgetown Law School. I don't like loose strings, and I was talking with the dean 2 days before class started, and he said, "We're glad to welcome you back." And he said, almost as offhand, he said, "Oh, by the way," he said, "you're going to have to repeat that first year." And I stood up and I said, "Sir, it was very nice to meet you, but I have no intention of redoing that first year. I wasn't interested in doing that. I figured, give me the job, I'll catch up with what I forgot." So anyhow, they had their own way of doing that. So I left, and I eventually became an airline pilot, retired as an airline captain, flying the 747 aircraft for TWA after 34 years. So, the only other thing on the Navy, I was out of the Navy I got out in October of '64. I met my future wife the next month in Washington, D.C. My life is entwined with Washington, D.C. My daughter lives there now. And so immediately after I got out of the Navy in '64, I was looking for an airplane to fly. So I was in the Weekend Warrior program, U.S. Navy Reserve, and I flew the A-4 Skyhawk there. And that was until 1968, and then, as I like to put it, the Navy decided they couldn't do without me. And when the USS Pueblo was seized, they recalled me to active duty for my second tour of active duty. And I got trained in a couple other different airplanes. What happened on that? That was just under a year of duty. They called up the reserves. They called up my squadron. And so what we did is I reported, I put in the papers to TWA to take a leave. The government has an arrangement with airlines that in national need, military need, that you release the pilots who are qualified to go and do their military duty. So I had cleared that with TWA, and off I go. And we started out by staying right there at, and you don't know what's going to happen, whether it's going to be war or what. We stayed right there for 3 months at Floyd Bennett Field near Kennedy Airport in New York as a squadron, where I flew as a reserve weekend warrior, and now you're back on active duty. That's the only difference. You're not a weekend warrior. I have started my second tour of active duty in the Navy. And so you did what you always do. You do your practice flying day and night and stay ready. We did that for 3 months, and then Vietnam was really heating up big time. And so this would have been 1968. Yeah, Vietnam was really starting to heat up. So they sent us down to Cecil Field. We started training down there and getting ready to go day and night carrier qualifying again. I flew more powerful airplanes than the Crusader, but the Crusader, the chance-bought Crusader, was a single-engine, single-seat, afterburner equipped, supersonic Navy fighter, and it was called the last of the gunfighters because after the Crusader, they went to 2 people in the airplanes, the Phantom. You had a pilot and a radar officer and all that, what I call flying by committee. I never liked flying by committee. I always liked to be the lone guy strapping in and going. Don't ask me why, but so the Crusader was perfectly fit for that temperament. The other thing about the Crusader was it would kill you in a heartbeat. You had to pay attention with the Crusader. And for some reason that bonded me and everybody else who ever flew it. It was it really kept your attention at all phases. It was an amazing performer, and it just fit like a glove, and it was just, some people like blondes, some people like brunettes. I like the Crusader above all others. So, magnificent airplane, a unique design, and I never took the airplane aboard ship. I didn't fly the Crusader aboard ship. However, I did get a couple hundred hours in it and was privileged to do so. Now we know what's going to happen. The Pueblo crisis is over, but now they're short of pilots in Vietnam. So now we know we're going to head over to Vietnam, and that's a real meat grinder over there for A4 pilots. Life expectancy as an A4 pilot in Vietnam was not very good. So anyhow, we're getting ready to be day and night carrier qualified to go over to Vietnam. They never said that, but we were pretty sure it was going to happen. So we're in classroom one day getting ready to go flying. And they did it the Navy way. The Navy lieutenant walked in and said, "Excuse me," to the instructor, "listen up. We don't need you. You're all released from active duty." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" So the guy didn't listen to it twice. He just got up and we were all done. That's the Navy. We don't need you. Go home. We're done with you. And so that was, I came home, and Isabel now was my wife and mother about to be of our first child. And we packed up my Porsche and headed back to my job as an airline pilot. Everybody reacts to going to war differently. I didn't work at my reaction. It was very, very natural. And there are some pilots, there are some people, maybe you're one of them, and maybe even non-pilots, but they want to see how they perform in combat. They want to see if they measure up to it. They want to go get some medals. All that, none of that entered my mind. I would have done whatever they said without question, but I had no desire to drop bombs on people. I had no desire to fight in a war. I had no desire to collect a whole bunch of medals. I had come in the Navy to learn how to fly. They taught me how to fly, and I was going to do what they told me to do. But I had none of those, I didn't wrestle with any of that other stuff. I never questioned my ability to, I've never underestimated my ability. Maybe I've overestimated it a number of times. But I never questioned whether I would measure up to something. I just never entered into it.